Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, January 26th, and welcome to 7 Investing Live. This is our live stream event. We host every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern to put a spotlight on some of the stock market's most intriguing and investable opportunities. First and foremost, I hope everyone is staying warm on this chilly Monday morning. But we're going to heat things up today. I've got a really good show set for you. My name is Simon Erickson. I'm the founder and CEO of 7 Investing. If you'd like to see all of our long-term stock market investing opportunities, you can check out 7investing.com/subscribe. You get 7 days free to see every recommendation we've ever made, as well as our 5 monthly best buys. But we've got a treat for you here today. We've got an amazing show. We're going to be talking about the eVTOL industry. That is the electric vertical takeoff and landing crafts, which are kind of like a drone that carries passengers, especially in densely populated areas of the world. And my guest today is Emmet Savage. Emmet is the Chief Investment Officer and the co-founder of MyWallSt. He also devised Profit, which is a new, unique way that's bringing artificial intelligence into our investing industry. Emmet, I have known you for several years. I know that I speak on behalf of everyone watching this show when I say welcome to 7 Investing Live this morning.
Thank you, Simon. It's a total honor. And I've been on the 7 Investing journey as a customer and subscriber since day one. And the quality and the depth of the research that you and your team have produced and produced to this day is absolutely unbelievable. So I'm very honored to be here. And from a slightly warmer and drier Dublin, I don't get to say that often to anyone in the US.
We are colder than you are today, I think.
Yeah. Well, now I think the extremities that you guys get as an entire nation is way beyond the extremities we get. So it's always either hotter or colder, I think, in the US, and we're somewhere in the middle.
Well, keep an eye on the skies, not just for the snow and for the ice, but also for some vertical aircraft. We're going to be talking about eVTOLs today. The stock of focus we'll be mentioning in a moment is going to be called Vertical Aerospace. One that might not have been on your radar previously. It's a smaller company. Going to be interesting to dig into that one. And we're going to talk about Profit, which is the company that Emmet represents in a moment here as well. But first, let's talk about what eVTOLs are. This is really neat. This is a really neat sector, not only from a technological perspective, but also an investing space. These are aircraft that can carry a limited number of passengers with no emissions in small spaces that are, highly densely populated areas. You can hopefully see in the background, if you're watching live, this is actually some footage of what they look like, right? So they're electrical. There's no fuel. There's no emissions given off by these. They can reach top speeds of up to 200 miles an hour in some cases and can go an entire trip before needing to be recharged. And the noise of them is about the same volume as a refrigerator. So this is really neat. This is kind of a technical feat that's out there. And we're starting to see some adoption of these, not only through the United States, but other countries as well seem to be on board with eVTOLs and all of the benefits that they would bring to the transportation industry. Emmet, just to set the plate on this set the scene on this for a little bit, then I'm going to pass it to you. But I know that our American government here has been very supportive of this entire industry. Earlier last year, in June of 2025, the White House issued an executive order that was intended to accelerate the commercialization of drone and eVTOL technologies and to fully integrate them into the national aerospace system. We're starting to see some pilot programs certainly catching on here within the United States, but this seems certainly to be a really interesting space for investors to be participating in right now.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, because when you think about the world as a whole, generally the US innovates, Asia in large part imitates, and Europe regulates. And so when you say like America is the early adopter, push, that to me sounds, it's in keeping with all the breakthrough technologies that we've seen, you could argue, for the last 100 years. So when America is pushing it and the regulations are there, but there's fast track ways of getting things up in the sky, the rest of the world needs to wake up and pay attention. I think what we're doing here is discussing something that very few of us have actually interacted with in real life. But just as those of us 20 years ago figured that someday cars will be electric, the same cohort figure, well, someday, and that day is now, air traffic will be also electric. So that powertrain has moved from the EV cars to something that goes straight up and flies us over that street-bound traffic.
Correct. Lift straight up. There's no, not very different from a traditional aircraft. This is kind of like the Jetsons. I think the Jetsons was so predictive of future technologies ahead of its time. We're kind of getting to that now. This has been
Yeah.
something that's talked about for decades, but now we've got the Secretary of Transportation that's established the eVTOL Integration Pilot Program. So
Mm.
there's funding available for pilot programs to go out there and do these neat things and to prove, yes, this is actually viable. Yes, we can actually start carrying passengers out there. This is most likely in its first wave of this going to be more of an air taxi, carrying
Yeah.
humans, as opposed to kind of cargo or other things right now. And they do include human pilots, at least for the time being. It seems like a natural fit, at least here in the States, for densely populated areas like Manhattan, especially if you're trying to get back and forth from the airport or, places that people are commonly going. You don't want to go through the subway or the metro or taxis and things like this. This would offer an opportunity for maybe 4 to 6 passengers in one trip.
That's for sure. I mean, when you think about the mass market opportunity is for commuters, but then you have military and medical and probably a couple of other M's I can't think of. But but it's really when we see these things in the air, we're like, darn, I should have invested. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to get ahead of that curve, I think.
Absolutely. Now, this is not just a US phenomenon. We've also seen a lot of places. United Arab Emirates is
Mhm.
very interested in this. Abu Dhabi has already got some programs that are interested in doing like things like this. It seems like the airlines have an interest here in the United States. United Airlines is already partnering with some companies out there. The automakers like
Mm.
Stellantis, Chrysler has actually invested in several of these companies out there. And then, of course, the national funded programs out there. Are you seeing the same thing internationally? Emmett, is there anything that's going on that you're aware of either in Europe or Asia that's similar to what the United States is doing?
Yes, but I do think when we look to America, we're kind of seeing that early first mover advantage in the industry and where bigger businesses are now backing it. We can actually now see it in the rest of Europe. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the company today. Well, I'm going to talk hopefully at depth about our company today and who's actually behind it. Because when you look at their order book and who actually is behind the business, you start to see that there's a level of support there that goes far beyond. An eccentric founder with a vision for something that hasn't been proven. We're now looking at an entire aviation industry who's aligning with this as the future of aviation. When you think about aviation as a whole, it's had very little innovation since you could arguably say the Boeing 747. And without knowing, it was probably late 60s, early 70s. And that was kind of the great aviation innovation, and then things just had small iterative innovations from that point forward. Well, now we're looking at a step change in the innovation that we're going to discuss.
Innovation is the theme that has brought us together, Emmett. You and I have
Mm.
talked about disruptive innovation probably in the entire time we've known each other. And this is the perfect example of it, right? This is not going to all of a sudden be air taxis carrying everyone around the world for everywhere they want to go. We're still going to have those Boeing,
Yeah.
massive planes, carrying people internationally or to the airplane hubs. But certainly, if you can very, very quickly go somewhere and escape all of that, that's kind of the first steps of disruption. And I'm excited to get into the company that you brought up, Vertical Aerospace, here in a moment. But first, let's talk about the disruptive innovation piece. I'd like to introduce Profit, which is the company that you are the CEO of. It is a subsidiary of MyWallSt, and you kind of built it to be this neat way of codifying the investing experience, especially for innovative companies out there. Tell me what you're trying to accomplish with Profit.
Well, when I came up with Profit, I was in a valley of disillusionment, Simon, because it felt like the entire industry in which MyWallSt was operating was very similar. It was hyper competitive. And I know from previous chats you and I had, we're both fans of the blue ocean strategy.
Yeah.
And I sat alone in a hotel room. Exactly. There you have it.
Somewhere
Actually,
back there, if I'm pointing
I
correctly.
didn't even notice it. And it's somewhere on that shelf behind me. There you go. As if we planned it. We did not. The blue ocean strategy, for those not familiar with it, is you take all the value points in an industry and you invert them to find a space where something has not been done before. And the quick and easy example for people to understand was the PlayStation versus the Xbox, a competitive battle, which was on about 10, 12 years ago. And it was a duopoly. And Nintendo took a look and said, well, they have similar graphics, similar sound cards. You sit on your backside and you use your thumbs on a controller that ostensibly is the same shape and size. We're going to invert it. And they came up with the Wii. You had to stand up. You had to shake your arms. The graphics were poor quality. The sound was poor quality, but the fun was completely different. Well, I took that template of thinking and I spent I basically needed to reinvent the way I articulate a way to invest successfully. And what I came up with, and then my team, when I got back to Ireland, was profit. And profit is a very, very simple system where you start by taking an amount of money, let's say $10,000. You buy an equal amount of the 10 stocks that we recommend. So $1,000 into each. And on the next rebalance date, you simply sell what we tell you and buy what we tell you. And then you wait and you do it again 4 weeks later, over and over and over. In a few moments, I'll just show you a graph of how it's actually performed. But the track history for profit is absolutely mind-blowing. Its average annual return is 19.1%. That wasn't back tested. That was real tested. I sat down 17 years ago and codified the investing books, 26 investing master books, the ones that you and I and a lot of your listeners have read. One up on Wall Street, and the little book that beats the market, and all these books, but one particular white paper, an academic paper, outshone them all. And I sat down and, with my background in physics, started tightening a few bolts, if you like, and came up with profit. And profit is a very unique proprietary way for those people who don't want to think about it. You and I, Simon, and your listeners love the sport of investing. They want to hear about eVTOLs. They're like, tell me more. Tell me who's Joby, who's Archer, who's the other guy. So we're going to talk about that's for people. We love the sport, but profit is for those people who just want to smash the market. And it's a don't make me think. It's kind of like the 3-minute abs. It's the 3-minute a month formula. The 4-minute abs. That was the from what is it, the movie. So okay, so that profit is the most beautiful, sophisticated way of not having to think too hard about beating the market.
This is something I fully endorse. This is not a fly-by read, from a marketing perspective. This is something that I really am a fan of what Emmet's doing. I've gone out there and fully endorsed him, and I'm a big fan of this, to the point that I said, Emmet, you've got to give our audience a very special deal for this, right? If we're going to go talk about profit, I don't just want to push. I want a really good deal for anybody listening to the show. And you've agreed to this. You've agreed to a special deal where you're offering 50% off profit, even to just get in and try it out. We've got a site for that. We're going to include it in the comments, but if anyone wants to follow along live, it's useprofit, PROPHET.com/7investing. There's the link if you'd like to check this out. I'm a big fan of this, Emmet. You know that in addition to Blue Ocean Strategy, the other book up there, The Innovator's Dilemma, I think that the best returns you can find in the stock market is to dedicate cash and capital to the most disruptive and the most innovative companies that are out there. Whether that be, electric vehicles from Tesla, whether that be the graphics processing unit from NVIDIA, whether that be democratizing space like Rocket Lab has done, and whether that be the eVTOL industry, whatever it might be. You've done a fantastic job. And you and I have talked about it for several years too, of finding those. It takes a ton of time, though, too. This is a really, really great way to get exposure to that if you don't want to go out there and be attending technical conferences every single month.
Oh, for sure, Simon. I'm delighted that this is the best deal that's out there. You, as friends, and we spoke on the phone, it was like, right, let's just do something special, Simon. So it's $500 off. It's half price. We're not doing that anywhere else. And even though, and by the way, once you lock in the $499 price, you keep it forever. So that's just something. And later on this year, profit is going up to $2,000 a year. So anyway, let's not anchor on price. What I'm telling you, this is the most beautiful investing method that has a whole ton of 17 years of research behind it.
Absolutely. And you heard it there from Emmet. This is an exclusive offer. You only get it through 7investing, nowhere else out there. Useprofit.com/7investing if you want to check that out. I highly endorse this. I've been a big fan of everything that Emmet's building. Emmet, let's move on. Let's talk about the company that's on our radar this month, literally and figuratively. Kind of perfect pun for when we're looking up at the skies. But we've got Vertical Aerospace. The ticker on this is eVTL, very appropriate for this space that we're looking at. But I believe you actually have some slides in a presentation that we can hopefully share here.
For sure. Let me share them. So here we go. Let me click slideshow. Now, I think we're going to rip through this. That's where I am, the little bottom left-hand corner. I'm in Dublin, Ireland. So pick yourself out on your map. You can see we're probably not in the same location. But I just want to start off by, I guess I'm going to just say what you already said. This is a very quick visual on what eVTOL, or sort of rather vertical, what they do: electrical vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And before I jump into why I think we might be looking at a potential 10-bagger, albeit a high-risk 10-bagger, this is their vision, and I think it's very important that we always just get a quick snapshot of what is the vision of a business. And you can see here that they're looking to build a best-in-class aircraft with a global reach, with European leadership, which I'll explain why that's might be of interest and of importance in a moment. Certification is the answer, and having a really good capital allocation strategy. So I'm not going to dwell on this because I don't want to labor, the mission and the vision for the time we've got, Simon. But this slide is particularly interesting. It's the 40,000-foot view, if you excuse the pun, of where the business sees themselves going. And if you look at the bottom left-hand corner there, we are talking about a business that is anticipating. And I think projecting is what they'd say, but I think anticipation is a more relevant word. $10.7 billion in revenue by 2035, and we're all long-term investors here. So that time frame doesn't make us wince, but what it does say is this business is generating negligible to no revenue at the moment, and they are looking to go to around nearly 11 billion in revenue in what's now 9 years' time. And I think that just as the 40,000-foot view is where I'd like to start our listeners. And if I can dive in, this is the last call that they had, shareholders call that they had, the Q3 2025 call. And what I'd like to do is just point out this gentleman, Donal is how you pronounce that name in Ireland. I would not wish for anyone in the US to try and recall how to say that, but Donal Slattery is one of Ireland's most successful and influential figures in the entire global aviation finance business. And he was best known as the founder and the CEO of a listed business called Avalon. And he also built one of the world's largest aircraft leasing companies. And before that, he'd founded a business called RBS Aviation Capital. And he has a long track history of success and is a major force in the industry. And Avalon is so big, the business that he founded is so big that when Ireland, which is a small island nation, as we saw in the first slide, reports its GDP, they need to minus out, they need to subtract the contribution made by the aircraft leasing industry. It's so big, in order to give an accurate reflection of GDP. Now I'm going to come back to Slattery in a moment, because I want to do is just work through a little storyboard here. Did I skip through two? No, I didn't. Sorry. So this really, I just thought a picture paints 1,000 words. We all like to see what it is we're buying into, and that's the inside of one of Vertical's aircraft.
That looks nice, by the way, Emmet. If I might chime in, that's a pretty nice little.
It does. You're right. It's kind of like it looks lovely, compact, luxurious. Totally agree with you. And when you look at the cross section from above, you get a better view. So there's plenty of leg room. Bags go down the back. Pilot goes up the front, as you might expect. So they're kind of like shrunk down airplane in their traditional view of an airplane when you look at how they're being engineered at the moment. Now, this is a slide worth dwelling upon. And when I fired these over to you, as you know, just an hour ago, saying, here's what I hope to present, Simon, you immediately knew who company A and B are, which, from your experience as an analyst, you went, oh yeah, I know who they are. And so do I. But what Vertical did was they didn't name their two big competitors, but company A is no doubt Joby Aviation, a business I know you know well, Simon. It has a much larger market cap, around $13 billion. And it's seen, when at least they produced this slide deck, it had seen 231% gain in the year before, and that's consistent with Joby. And it is one of the biggest eVTOL peers by valuation. And then company B on the right-hand side there is likely Archer Aviation, which is still huge. It's around 6 billion in market cap, and it too has also grown, but in share price appreciation. But Vertical, despite having so many critical attributes for success in the industry has actually got a whole string of green ticks that I won't read them out here. We can see that they have ostensibly superior aircraft, but its share price has been somewhat crushed. And if your listeners jump in and take a look, they will see a business that has a market cap of around $600 million. So like if you take Archer on the right-hand side, it's 6 billion, it's 10-fold bigger, and Joby Company A is 20-fold bigger. So all of that is to say that when it's put shoulder to shoulder, as the vertical team did with this slide, with the two big players, you can see that there's some great tech that's so far been underappreciated. Now, there's a lot of brands on this slide, and the predominant brand is Donald Slattery's company, Avalon. It's behind a huge portion of the order book. And I'm of the opinion that we are looking at an absolutely incredible strategic partnership that has been completely missed, or at least misunderstood by the market for the moment. So on the bullish side, so the order book, as we can see at the bottom there, is effectively been closed for what's about 2.5 years at this time by now, and it's time to expand. And they have an order book of around 2,500 aircraft, of which Avalon, the aviation leasing giant, has placed a lot of orders, and you can see there in the parentheses, placed by Avalon. Now, on the bullish side, the argument to say the stock is going to go up, the company is pursuing its certification in the UK and Europe first. So what you said at the top of the call, Simon, about how the US makes it easier for breakthrough technologies to get to their endpoint, and I said, like, where US innovates and Europe regulates, what we're looking at is a business that's pushing through the path of more difficult resistance by going for certification in the European jurisdiction first, because success in Europe would not only unlock the European operations, but it would materially accelerate acceptance in the USA, Canada, and Asia, where approvals are, where the European approvals are regarded as the gold standard. They're quick thinking as well. If they approved it, we don't have as much work to do. Now, at the same time, Vertical's decision to pursue both fully electric and hybrid electric aircraft meaningfully broadens its addressable market beyond the urban air taxis, as we discussed, into logistics and defense and emergency services, where range and payload matter far more than zero emission, which we all want. But the reality is, if you are flying to a military zone, or you have somebody who needs medical attention, the electric thing is of far less importance. Now, the bear case, because I always, like you, always want to point out the risks in the bear case, is that it is pre-revenue or negligible revenue, and it is ripping through cash. This is like a steam train that's shoveling cash into the furnace, and it will require additional capital before certification. And so it's roughly sorry, I said 2,500. It's 1,500 orders in the small print there at the bottom. So it's roughly 1,500 aircraft order book. Is really impressive.
That's very good, actually. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But it's non-binding. We all know it's nice. So the chairperson of this business, Vertical, is the founding CEO of Avalon, their biggest potential customer, but that is a non-binding order book. But I'm of the opinion that Donald Slattery, I don't know him personally, I know plenty of people who know him personally, I know and work very closely with him. I'm of the opinion that this is more than just a pipe dream. And I was speaking with someone very familiar with the company, and to quote him directly, he said as follows: "My summary is that they likely have a great product with commuter and military capability, but have a key year ahead in 2026 in terms of product development and certification, and are well into the certification cycle here in Europe, but they need to find a strategic industrial partner ASAP to fill the funding gap. So money is required." And I, a week and a half ago, voted as a shareholder for the proposed approval of increasing the company's authorized share capital from 200 million shares to 1 billion shares. Yep. So dilution is a given, but that's also priced into the stock now. And then this is just a very simple graph of total revenue, which, as I said, is negligible. You might look for those eagle-eyed there in the histogram, the blue pillars there, 0.1 and 0.1
Love
are
it.
well, the reason they're misaligned is it's probably 100,000 and then 180,000. But either way, you can see that this is not a glamorous look. But what I would say to your listeners is my colleague Mike and I, who have a podcast, we score businesses based on the potential for the risk out of 10, potential to 10x out of 10, and would we own it as part of a 12 stock portfolio? And we both put a 10 out of 10 on risk. It's nosebleed risk time. Its potential to grow 10x, I believe, is 10 out of 10 because it is so well, it's a micro cap at the moment, a small cap at the moment. And when you look how the American counterparts in Joby and Archer are doing, you can see at least where the current ceiling sits. And then the question to Mike and I, would you hold it as a 12 stock only portfolio? No, but I own it, but I own more than 12 stocks. So that I'll go back up. So that is the pitch for vertical in a nutshell, Simon. And as you can see, it is risky, but it's also very exciting.
It certainly is, Emmett. This is one I think we could have one of those 2 beer conversations on. This is one of those that we probably talk about for a couple hours. It's very fascinating in so many ways. We've got a couple of minutes here to talk about this. If we could possibly unshare the screen and open this back up so that Heather can get in there with some questions as well if she'd like. But the first thing that I want to say, Emmett, is that, disclaimer up front, this is high risk. Like you said, $0.1 million in revenue. That's nothing. This is still a concept. This is just an idea. And so there's certainly a lot of risk as this is going to work itself out. This might not be the only winner out there. But I also, counteract that by saying everyone else is saying the same thing. The reason that nobody wants to invest is when the risk is high and someone is going to win in this space. And I would like to draw a lot of similarities to both Tesla and to Rocket Lab, 2 companies that you and I have chatted about quite a few times over the years, Emmett. But they said the same thing about why Elon couldn't do it with electric vehicles. Even he himself said there was only less than a 10% chance of Tesla even succeeding and not going bankrupt entirely. And the same thing with Peter Beck at Rocket Lab. There is absolutely no way you're going to have this high-end rocket that's going to be able to compete with the large governments out there. But they both did, and they both kind of did the reverse disruption approach, where you're not going after a minimally viable product and then trying to improve it over time. You're going after something really, really good. We saw the inside of the cabin there for vertical outer space, something that people are going to really, really want to get into, and then you're going to start seeing the volumes grow, just like the Roadster expanded for the Tesla, just like the first Rocket Lab rocket expanded into Electron out there. I see a lot of similarities in these, and I think that one thing that I'd like to add to the contribution for this conversation is let's watch those contracts. If they really do have a pipeline of 1,500 orders, that is an order of magnitude higher than what we've seen from the government, from the United States, and also Abu Dhabi for both Joby and Archer, which, as you mentioned, are 10 times larger of a market cap than vertical aerospace is here. This could certainly, if they start showing the credibility and start getting execution, no doubt about it, could be a 10-bagger or more than that.
And once that certification arrives from Europe, and I do believe it's inevitable because they are the forerunner over here and they deliberately went after certification here, and the knowledge it was far slower and more rigorous and, red tape-ish. But the moment that certification arrives, the stock will pop. Now, as I said, it's going to need cash to get there because it is not in the business of selling sandwiches and Kool-Aid. Like they're really got a lot of innovation, a lot of big salaries. But if they get there, and I believe they will, it's just how dilutive will it be? And I know you, Simon, but again, a lot of our listeners might be aware of the economic rule of 3, which is not actually a rule, but it's a concept that in any industry, ultimately 3 industries become the giants, and whether it's baked beans or you got it. So I think that these guys, while I'm not trying to put forward that they're going to be the biggest, I think they'll be big enough and far bigger than 600 million market cap.
This is a fascinating topic. I'm going to open it up for questions at this point. Heather, if you have any that you would like to chime in, please open up your line and your mic if you'd like to ask Emmet.
Hi, Emmet. If anyone has any questions, you can pop them in the chat wherever you're watching this live stream. I have a few questions. One, more of a comment. I really like your 12 stock portfolio. That's a very succinct way to say what I always describe as like my fun stocks, which I have a collection of fun stocks that, like, no, you should not own in a 12 stock portfolio, but they're just my pet stocks and I like them and I own them because I enjoy them. But that's a much clearer way to explain, like, they're maybe not like the safest, smartest ones all the
Oh
time,
yeah.
but they're really fun and they're the ones that often do really well or go to zero. Uh, so these are being sold mostly to governments and private companies, correct? Not individuals.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the moment, the order book is mostly made up of well-known
Mhm. There's
carriers like
American
American
Airlines
Airlines and Dubai Airlines and Virgin Airlines, and
and
so yes,
Greenland
it is.
Air bought 100 of them.
Yes, exactly. So it's a B2B business model only.
And then what does the pilot's license look like for these? Is it a small aircraft license? Is it a unique license? Commercial? Do you know?
I don't, but Simon, you're nodding, so you might have a better idea.
Country specific, the AAA would regulate things for the pilots in the United States. I'm not sure how it would look in Europe or United Arab Emirates, but it's certainly regulated on certain hours and training and things like that they have to go through.
Yeah, and I think again, just if it's regulated well in America, it's regulated more heavily in Europe. So I think it's very much vehicle specific, a bit like you got to have a certain license for a semi versus a small electric car.
And then do you think there's a future in these kind of industries for individual ownership, or is this something that you think would come down to like ride share but never fully into individual ownership?
Well, this is a matter of opinion because I don't have a great
Mhm.
insight, but my opinion on this is that when autonomous flight, we're talking about autonomous vehicles at the moment, and while we see them in major cities, we haven't seen it all over the world yet. When autonomous flight becomes, I think, more bedded down, and you don't need a pilot's license, my opinion is yes, there someday might be a market for people having an eVTOL on the roof of their premises or out in the yard, but I think that that's suitably far away that even it is not projected into the numbers that the business is projecting on.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And it seems a little scary to just have a lot of individuals trying to fly these
Oh
around.
yeah, I think you don't know it because I think the real challenge will become the management of airspace. If eventually the software flies these things perfectly, you just want to make sure that that traffic is moving in a very nice futuristic way, a la Jetsons, like Simon said.
Or Virgin Galactic even. I mean, remember Richard Branson was playing around with space flight. You could
He
actually go
was.
into into outer space for a tourist kind of thing. And he was having no problem selling out all the capacity he had for people paying thousands of dollars to. You've got to
Yes.
see they're going to test it. They're going to have the first flights be $500 for passengers, and then eventually it's going to be $400 and its way down.
For sure, for sure. But I think for the first time, we're able to look at this industry and now start to see the parallels between the autonomous car industry, which feels like it's a few laps around the block further from an acceptance, regulation, and rollout perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
this is
Heather.
fantastic. Emmet, this is a great space. Like I said, I'm very intrigued by it. Again, Vertical Aerospace is the name of the company. eVTL. If you did like to follow up on that one, I think it kind of just proves the power of profit. The product that you've developed that we're talking about here of finding maybe these under the radar companies out there that are not yet on anyone's radar. I'm pretty pumped up to hear more about this one in particular. Emmet, we've got you on the show all week. This is part 1 of 3 for you and I
Yes.
on the 7 Investing Live Show. We're also going to be talking about 2 more companies on Wednesday and then on Friday. But man, what a great kickoff. Thanks for being here on Monday to talk about this company.
And my pleasure, Simon. And just before I go, this is just the real life graph of profits performance since it was not back tested, but since it was invented. And you can see the annual performance report on the right hand side. Only 1 year where it was negative. All you need to do is own 10 stocks and turn them over when we tell you every 4 weeks. Its performance since inception, it's up almost 19-fold. And it's something we're very proud of to work with you on, Simon, on this exclusive deal. And thank you so much for allowing me to join you on your podcast this week, today, Wednesday, Friday, and talk a little bit about the stocks that I'm excited about.
Absolutely. So we're going to be coming back again on Wednesday. But again, in the meantime, useprofit.com/7investing if you want to go try it out. I use the product. I can vouch for it and I endorse this one. So use this exclusive offer that's only available for our audience here. Again, half off, $4.99 for the year for Profit. And once again, we're going to be having Emmet Savage, the CEO of MyWallSt and the creator of Profit, back again on Wednesday and Friday again for the shows. So in the meantime, thanks for tuning into this episode. Stay warm out there. No matter where you're calling in or watching from, we will see you again on Wednesday. Be safe and be kind to one another. Talk to you again soon.